Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today, we got a gem of a show. What happens when you die? Yep, that's right. What happens when you die? Good question, universal question. Interesting question. And we also have what happens when my relationship dies, which is the title of the show. Please put in the comments below, what do you think happens when you die? What do you think happens when your relationship dies? And do you know anything about near-death experiences? Very popular on YouTube now, NDEs. You can look that phrase up or those initials up, NDEs, and you can come across a lot of videos on that, and that means near-death experience. And basically a near-death experience is when someone officially dies, their heart stops beating, and they come back in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I remember there was a movie called Flatliners in the 80s that there were some medical students that were doing this. It was a fictional movie, but very interesting. And so I think I talked about this last year in a live stream, but a different perspective I thought about now. And a lot of times in the live stream, we get different people, different points of view. So I thought I'd retouch on it, and I kind of have a new spin on it. And I was thinking, there's a lot of things with past lives regression to go into your past lives, regardless if you believe in reincarnation or past lives. It's something people are interested in, right? It's like lucid dreaming. And what if you went into a past breakups regression? So that's what I'm going to go with this and lead into, is if you got to revisit some of your breakups and review what happened, not just a recent one or one you're in the middle of now, but the ones before this one, all of them. And hopefully there's not too many, because that would be reflective of you also. If you have 15 relationships, it's not just them that's the problem, right? There's something that you're filtering for, sabotaging. So, got 4 on deck. Let me get into this. And please, if you're on the live stream or you're watching it later on, any questions, put it in the comments or on the side, anything in relation to your breakup or your relationship, or you just want to say something, get it in. So I'm going to go into this for a little bit. What happens when you die? What happens when your relationship dies? Have you ever looked into what happens when you die? I mean, not just in the sense of what someone told you, but have you ever looked into it? Now we have the internet, we have YouTube. There's a lot of different modes to investigate and come up with your own things. So go ahead and Google that or YouTube that and see what comes up in your free time. To be clear, I'm not saying there is life after death, but it's up for interpretation. But what's really interesting, if you look up the name Raymond Moody, which I've put in the side notes here, he's a doctor that's studied this for over 20 years. And the way he's studied it is talking to people that had NDEs or near-death experiences where they actually passed away for a period of 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Some people have passed away for 50 minutes and came back. And so you can look him up on YouTube and find some of his interviews. And it's just really interesting because he's one of the rare people. He's not selling anything really. He's got a few books that he's written on it. He seems very into it. And he's done a lot of research on it, right? By interviewing people, by getting their stories. And if you notice, even in the last 6 months, this NDE, if you put it into YouTube, they'll come up with all these stories of these people aren't actors. They're real people. They're genuine people that have died and came back and tell you what they saw. It's pretty damn interesting if you ask me. And so I like Raymond Moody's approach because he's so genuine And if you see him in interviews, he's just really excited to share what he's learned. So it's often said that a human's biggest fear would be death. Not everyone, but a lot of people. I think one fear would be that just being alone for the rest of your life. I mean, why do we put our loved ones in homes with old people? So it's not necessarily that everyone feels that way, but a lot do, right? But what I was saying is, if you look up these NDEs, if you look up these near-death experiences on YouTube and Raymond Moody's work, perhaps even look at his book. I haven't read his book, but I've seen his interviews, and I've looked up these NDEs, near-death experiences before, and a lot of people say that they were good experiences. There were good experiences that they felt they were in a better place. But one of the things that comes up over and over again, and you'll see this in that Disney movie Soul, I think it's called Soul something, is they say you have a life review. Okay? So you have this review of your life, which, again, I can't confirm this is true or not true because I haven't had an NDE. But let's just say that this is a strong possibility based on all these people saying that it's almost like a screenshot or a vast view of all your experiences in your life in one view. And you get to see all these interactions where you've done things that have either hurt people or helped people, and you feel those experiences. This is a very common theme for people that have had near-death experiences, right? So they go back and they look at everything they've done in their life, and they feel the emotion really deeply. And if they've hurt someone, they feel that. And if they've helped someone, they feel that. They see the goodness, they see the bad. And these are what people are reporting when they come back. How you doing, Jesse? Eduardo Martinez? And where I'm going with this, right? This is pretty interesting stuff, right? What if we transfer that over to breakups or relationships where when your relationship dies or your breakup dies, you went back and revisited those relationships. Maybe it's 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, not just your most recent one. What if you were able to revisit all of them and be in those moments? Or just look back and reassess what were your real feelings. So I did this in an interesting way. I was talking to a client. I'm in the beginning of stages of setting this up, where you do a past breakups or past relationships regression / review. Because I think it's really interesting, because in the review, you can see what you're filtering for. You can see your tendencies. So this is kind of a case study I'm going to share with you guys, and I'm doing more of this. And now I'm doing more hypnotherapy, if you're interested in that. And trying some new things than just talking. Talking works. Unpacking your story helps. But there's some more modalities that get a little deeper. And this is one of the ones I'm exploring right now. I think it's really interesting. So let's unpack this. We got 8 on deck, 3 likes. L, welcome. Yeehaw. Well, howdy there, little Texan. Eduardo, Jesse, you're in for a treat. Let me know what you think. So we have, let's say we have this individual, and I won't say their name. 35 years old, has been with 4 serious relationships. He's the man, she's the woman, or they're the woman, just to put that in there. And so we went through this, and I was talking to him. And if you were going to review these relationships, and we're not going to go way in depth on this, right? But he gave me the name of his first girlfriend when he was 20. And that's right. His first serious girlfriend was when he was 20. I said, okay. He goes, yeah, I didn't really get started in high school, this, that, and the other. And the funny thing about that is there's a lot of people out there that do that when they talk to me. Oh, in high school, I was a nerd, or in high school, I was not active, and I never had a girlfriend or boyfriend. A lot of people have that. It's not the movies. Not everyone was a cheerleader or a football player. So 20 years old, I said, what were the good parts? That first relationship. Take me back to that situation. And he said, well, the good parts were I was special to her. I was extremely loved. I was adored. She had a great personality, very outgoing. And I just knew she was fully into me. So those were the good parts. Bad parts. Over time, I didn't trust her. I was worried that she was a hoe, and that lost her value in other eyes. She had been someone that he knew had way more experience than he had. Some people call it body count or lay count. She was much more experienced than him, and he had an insecurity about that. And he actually knew some of the guys that had hooked up with her. And being 20 years old, it really bothered him, right? And it really made him insecure. He always felt like he could do better. He said she wasn't very smart at times. And being 20 years old, looking back, he said, I just wanted to date other women, multiple women. And then we went through the 1 to 10 attraction. He said the attraction was like a 7. And the interesting thing about attraction is I always say this attraction's fleeting. So there's going to be moments where the attraction could be a 10, but overall a 7. Connection was a 7. And he said overall trust was a 6. And then he said this relationship lasted just over a year. And he ended up breaking up with her. He found a way to break up. She didn't do something directly wrong. It was more about him constantly accusing her of lying about who she had been with before him. So that was an interesting regression back into it. And so it wasn't a breakup that carried too long with him or was really hard on him. But where I'm going with this is seeing what you're settling for. So, for example, the attraction was a 7, connection was a 7. I think it would be more ideal to be at a 9 or 10, right? Or at least an 8. A 7, if you think about it, is a grade C, right? And a 6 for trust from the get-go. And he said that was from the get-go, because as you'll see when we review this, sometimes your trust can start at a 10 and then go to a 2, like the last 2 or 3 months. So that trust can change, attraction can change. But what I'm looking for is where did it mainly lie from the beginning? And he said he didn't trust her from the beginning, based on the fact that he knew that she had been with some of his friends and whatnot. So his next girlfriend was, I believe he said 23 for 5.5 years. And he said good parts, extremely loyal, loved me and showed it by doing things for me, had only been with one person before, listened to my advice, let me lead, great sense of humor, and overall, we're just really good together. Didn't fight very often. And what's interesting about this, notice he didn't say attractive. Bad parts. Got a job that she became loyal to and did things for others more than me. Was way too money motivated for me at the time. Looked down on people sometimes. Was self-righteous. Could sometimes drink too much in a crowd and embarrass me. Didn't have a lot of life experiences. Sometimes not attractive. So the attraction was a 7. The connection was a 7. And then he had said this one was a trust at a 10, but towards the end it was a 2 based on her getting some texts from guys and just changing her whole act later on. But he said overall it was a really great relationship. It was a very hard breakup for him. But what's interesting is the attraction was always a 7. It wasn't like higher than that. So the third one, good parts, and this is when he was, I believe, about 29, because it was a year or 2 years later. Extremely loyal. So you notice here he's filtering for loyalty after being with someone that he thought had the propensity to not be loyal. Loving and affectionate, naturally beautiful, honest, good-hearted. Bad parts. Mom dominated her. He said that she always had to get the okay from mom for everything. Was money hungry at times. Not the smartest or most intellectual person. Attraction was an 8. And even said it could be a 9. Connection was an 8. Trust was a 10. And he was saying that this is the one, if he had to do things over again, might have married. And they had a long distance thing. They had some other things that got in the way of the relationship. But he thought, looking back, this would have been the one. And they had a lot of good things going for them. Again, like I said, he's mentioned a few things more than once. Don't be surprised that he thought this one was the best, and this is the one that he was the most attracted to, and found the most natural beauty in. So just like I said before, sometimes people go, oh, attraction doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. It does. Then the last one, he was with, I think he said 33 to 36 for a few years. Good parts, became loyal. So he didn't view her as extremely loyal in the beginning, but became loyal. Lots of life experience, good sense of humor, very smart, did things for him a lot, put him first, put up with anything he did, and just loved him a lot. Bad things. Lacked affection sometimes. Sometimes would put me down or yell at me. Could be bossy or stubborn. Was always worried about money, but never kind of into making it. Had a fear of taking chances with work. Could be extremely negative and liked to fight with anyone they had a problem with. Trust was a 10. Attraction was 7 to 8. Connection, 5 at the end. So that was kind of interesting. You know, just noticing it, and this is not a surprise, but he's obviously filtering for loyalty. He's never settling for someone he's attracted to lower than a 7. You know, I've had plenty of clients that say, wow, I'm kind of not that attracted. And that's going to carry with you. I think a 7 or up is an important number. You should at least start at a 7. And a connection at the end, 5 to 10. So what was difficult is the loyalty was there, the trust was there, the connection wasn't. And sometimes you can you can let that go by just not hanging out as much, right? So, and he said currently he's dating someone, and the good part's extremely loyal. So he's said that 3 times. Adores him, very positive-minded, extremely kind-hearted and affectionate, loves to have intimacy a lot. Keep in mind, this is an early relationship, right? This isn't years, this is months. So there's a little bit of a honeymoon phase here. Bad parts, not very real-world intelligent, hard to have an intellectual conversation, can be immature. Attraction is a 6. Trust is a 10. Connection is a 6. So this is kind of interesting when you write that out. So looking at it, I just think it's really interesting when you look at your breakups or your relationships and you review it in a style like that, and you look at what you really like or what you really want and how much you're looking for the same things over and over again, or where you give in, right? So some people will say that it's okay if I'm not that attracted, or it's okay. Usually the number one thing, though, that you really have to have at a 9 or a 10 is trust. I mean, if you're in a relationship, that's the biggest one. Could a loss of trust be mirrored image of the accuser? Eduardo, what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate? I think I know. So, if I'm correct, what you mean by that is that if someone's doing wrong things in the relationship, such as cheating or emotional cheating, and they accuse you of doing the same thing, that they're basically trying to get out in front of it. What I see in you, I see in me. And it's funny you mention this because when I was in Thailand, there was an individual that I had seen at a coffee shop multiple times, and it looked like the guy's was with his girlfriend. I didn't know him, just said hello or whatever because I'd seen him multiple times. One of those things, if you see someone at 4 or 5 times, you start to go, hey, how you doing? Make eye contact. And then through some mutual friends, there was a woman that we met at a restaurant, right? It was it was mutual people. It's like 5 or 6 people. And I had met her before, not really close, but we know each other. I said, what's up, And this guy comes over, and it's the guy from the coffee shop, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, like I know this guy, and he knows me from running into each other and just saying, hello, how you doing? He was friendly. And she goes, yeah, this is my husband. And I said, oh my God, in my head. I didn't react. I stayed neutral. It's not my business. But obviously this girl that he had been meeting in this cafe, I mean, they were holding hands, flirting, talking. You could tell that something was going on. And he kind of looked at me like, don't say a word. And in my head, I'm like, this isn't my place. But she's like, yeah, this is my husband. He gets really jealous. And he was like, who are you here talking to? He was really aggressive. And I was kind of like, and her friend was like, yeah, he gets really jealous if she's talking to anyone else. And I was like, so right there, Eduardo, he's obviously playing around or messing around, but he's also acting like, you better not do it to me. And that is common if someone's like that not all the time, but it is very common for someone to accuse someone else of what they're already doing. And if people don't give a benefit of the doubt in the beginning of the relationship, so trust, if you don't have it up front, that's understandable. You could be you have to gain trust in friends, family, and colleagues. Family, you kind of have to stick with them regardless, right? Or you got to cut them off sometimes. But with trust in the beginning, it's going to take some time. And if you've been burned before, you might be filtering for certain things that happened before. But you should have a good reading of the person that you're dating and saying, this is the type of person that I can trust, or this is by what they tell you, by their values. And what was interesting about this little case study is this individual's really attracted to women that are extremely loyal, which most men have that as a high thing, right, Ozzy? Most men, they do filter for that, okay? And then I'd add that sometimes some guys, if you're insecure, so this happens sometimes with guys that are 15, 20 years older. Someone's like, what? There's a lot of relationships out there like that. It's not as common for women to men, but I've had a client that had his wife was 15 years older than him. Okay, so it happens. The person that's older generally becomes a little bit more insecure as they get older. Surprise, surprise. They start accusing the other person of more stuff because deep down they know it's going to be a hard competition with age. And if you're in one of those relationships, someone's probably with you beyond attraction. Could be for security, could be for money. But I would add, if you are in one of those relationships, make sure you take care of yourself if you want to keep the relationship going. Because just because you get older and you fall out, right? And I'm completely fine. There's plenty of guys that go, oh, I'm dating a 25-year-old and I'm, 45. Go for you. Good for you. But don't be surprised if it doesn't work out, because that 25-year-old has way more options in their 20s than you do. Right? You're 45. You pulled a 25-year-old or 28-year-old, right? Good for you. First of all, don't be surprised if it doesn't end up being a long-term thing, because they have a lot more options than you do at 25. And you're not, there's a certain level of 25 to 30-year-olds that just won't date someone over 40. They just won't do it. It's just not attractive to them, right? So their pool is going to be much higher than yours. And don't be surprised if they find a petty reason to break up with you. Time to hit the gum if you want to keep up. So, if you've had, thanks, I was wondering, time to hit the gum. Time to hit the gym if you want to keep, and that's completely possible, right? Like now with all the different workouts and diets, you can do it. Love Matt, brilliant coach and handsome, watching from England. Right on, Ong38. Good to hear from you. It's MAC, but I think that was just a typo. Really appreciate the support. But I challenge some of you out there, maybe if you're watching this, I understand, Ozzy, I get it, bud. I challenge some people out there, do a past breakups regression. Look into your past breakups and what were the good parts? What were the bad parts? And then do your attraction, do your connection on a scale of 1 to 10 and your trust on a 1 to 10. And I would actually, you know what, I used to group in attraction with intimacy, but they're not necessarily the same thing. I would say intimacy to throw in there. And I just like the word intimacy because it covers the bases with a little bit of class, right? You can use your imagination for what intimacy is. But you could be highly attracted to someone. Ozzy knows this because he's been around the block a few times, I'm going to guess. You can have a high level of attraction and the intimacy is not really good. You can be with someone that's not as attractive and the intimacy is outstanding. How does that happen? Well, people measure relationships in different ways. And I'll take this in a different direction too. Think about it like this. When you meet someone, right? Ozzy meets someone, Eduardo meets someone, Chris the Critic's out there, L's out there. You meet someone, you have a conversation. You're at a Christmas party and it's one of your cousin's new girlfriend or boyfriend. This is in an intimate relationship. It's just you meeting someone. That's it. You don't realize you do it, but you measure people on things that are high value to you. So think about that for a minute. You meet someone new, right? Let's say you just meet someone at work, because a lot of people have jobs. Let's take away the cousin thing. You meet someone at work, they're a new colleague. You immediately measure them by the way they're dressed. So what does it tell you how someone's dressed? Do they have money or not? Are they sporty? Are they this? What you're really measuring them on is how much do they dress like me? A lot of times, right? So someone might be like, wow, you're wearing, I used to wear a suit when I was in real estate, and a guy that did really well was casual, and you don't have to wear a suit in real estate. So he'd be like, oh, you got a suit on today, huh? Because it bothered him, because he measured people by being casual, right? Where someone else would measure me by, wow, you look professional. Now, a lot of people measure people in America. If someone says, for example, I'm a doctor, I'm a fireman, I'm a psychiatrist, someone's going to measure you on that. When I tell people I'm a breakup coach, a lot of people go, what? Like, they're going to measure me on anything that they know about coaching, but also it's kind of one of those things that's not really common, where if you say doctor, it's immediately prestigious. Right? It's immediately prestigious. You're going to measure. You're usually, most people will go, wow, you're a doctor? Fireman? Usually immediate prestige. I remember in California telling people I'm a teacher. Oh, you're a teacher, huh? They don't make a lot of money, though. Kind of a waste of time. People are always measuring. They're always measuring you based on their values. And when you are in a relationship, if people don't measure up to what it is that you find valuable or important, you have problems. But what gets in the way is the emotional attractiveness of someone, or the great intimacy in a lot of cases in the beginning of the relationship, make you overlook things you don't like. But I think what you really have to come back to when you look back at your old relationships, or even people you used to date, and you go, the good parts, bad parts. Look at what you keep finding to be the good part. So this individual I just reviewed, he's attracted to extremely loyal women when he's going to be monogamous, right? And someone will be like, oh, wow. Not everyone makes that a big issue. They complain about it later. I've had clients like, I don't trust her. I know she messes around. It's like, well, what are you doing with her then? Well, the intimacy's outstanding. Well, then that's your trade-off, right? So looking back, I think at old breakups, you can kind of discover what you keep liking. And you also can say, whoever was quote unquote the best, and by the way, if you've been with at least 3 or more, you can kind of go, oh, I didn't even realize that one was my favorite. Why was that one my favorite? The timing was off. This was off. That's very true, Coach. Happened to meet a lot with the honeys. Oh, man, I'm nervous thinking about the people I've gave a solid chance to. Good to see you. You love Mex33. It's kind of interesting, though, right? I think it's kind of interesting to go back through it, kind of see what you like, and then see where you're at now, right? If you do it and you're in your 30s and you look at one of the relationships you had when you were 21 or 24, you're going to be a different person now. And so you might value that relationship in a different way. You might think, oh, how did I even last with that person? Or you might think, man, that could have been the one. I was just out to lunch, or I didn't have my values right. FP says, you look great. Well, you look great too in that little picture. You're in Miami, right? Or Florida. Matt, please call me Mac. I loved your video about when it's time to move on your personal story. It really made me think. Well, thank you. Thank you. When is it time to move on, huh? It's tough. I've actually just I've mentioned this before. I just completed a hypnotherapy training certification course. Learned a lot of new stuff to help people with moving on beyond just talking and coaching, which is good and helpful, useful. I enjoy it. I enjoy a long conversation. But there's some new things that I've picked up, some new tools, some new therapies that really get to the bottom of things. And one of the biggest things is accepting how you feel, even if it's negative. So if you think, your ex, John's mom is a total piece of shit, POS, but you're fighting that because you're a nice person or because you don't want to go there, you need to find a way to accept that's your feelings. And a very good way to do that, I'm going to do a video on this eventually, is something called tapping. And you actually tap different meridian points on your body, and you actually say what you're having trouble accepting. Because one of our biggest problems is, and I'm going to really talk about this a lot in upcoming videos, is just not being able to accept our feelings and accept that we're really upset or we're really hurt. We have this contradiction in our head of, well, I'm hurt, but I'm angry, but I shouldn't be hurt. I should just move on. I shouldn't. What you really want to do, and what I've really learned, is we want to complete that emotion. If you're angry, like, get it all out, accept that's how you feel, accept that you hate your ex's John's mother, right? And then you can clear it because you've accepted it. That's how you feel. Long Beach, the LBC. Wow. FP's in Long Beach. Okay, my mistake. I apologize. Good to hear from you. There was someone else that was from Florida before. I haven't been to Long Beach in a long time. I actually have a friend that's from there, though. And the great Snoop, right? No problem, Ong. All good. I've gotten a lot in life. It's either Matt or Max. A lot of times people, oh, Max. Say, not a big deal. Most of the time, if the attraction level is a 5, but intimacy is at 8, men will overlook the physical attraction level. Is this claim plausible? Absolutely. Certain body parts have no face. That's as eloquent as I can put it, right? Certain body parts have no face. And you know what, to take that a step further, Eduardo Martinez, I'd say that you'd have to ask yourself this and be really honest with yourself. Is your attraction to someone related to your ego and what your friends and family might think of what's attractive also? Think about that for a moment. Deep down, you're attracted because intimately it's an 8 or a 9, but you're like, I'm not that, she doesn't look that good, or he doesn't look that good. Are you just seeing that or saying that because based on society, videos, and movies, they don't measure up? Because if you can get aroused, then you're highly attracted to them. But if you think about it, it's probably your ego telling you, well, everyone else won't think they're attractive. It's an interesting thing to consider. I think that comes with maturity, and I think it's very human. People like to be accepted by their friends and family. They like to be complimented by friends and family. Some people would, you're lying if you say no to that. And that's part of where you're going to be maybe dishonest if your attraction's a 5, but your intimacy's an 8, right? It's like they do something for you, right? Behind closed doors. And like I said, some body parts don't have a face. Hello from the other side of the world. How's it going, Coach? Rob, it's excellent. I hope you're doing better, my friend. I hope you're doing good, man. I know you had a rough set of holidays there, but, you know, from what you wrote me and what you told me, Rob, you're doing the best you can, man. You're doing the best you can. And that's all you can do, man. And isn't it interesting, too? It's like, we all meet our match, too. Sometimes, you know, you're surprised. You're really surprised by what happens in a relationship, especially long-term ones. And someone can flip the tables on you, Rob. They can give you a taste of your own medicine. In other parts of the world, we call it karma. You can call it whatever you want, but you got to deal with it. And it's tough sometimes. It really is. You got to be honest with yourself, right? Sometimes we let ourselves off the hook. Are you feeling better, Rob, these days? Are you good that you got out of the States? New environment? Things feeling better? Yes, I loved it. I'm going through a breakup. Mac's story helped me. Was that the story where I saw the email? Is that the one, Ong38? Mac, have you ever been to England? No, I have not. I have a I have a few close friends from the UK. Really good friends, actually. And one of my friends is from Holt, I believe it is. And he's always like, you ever want to go down there, mate? You got a place to stay in. No offense, England's not on my list. Nothing personal. If I went anywhere in Europe, it'd probably be France, because we have my mom has relatives over there. My mom's half French. and I'd go to Ireland because I'm a McCarthy. Probably, I think our family names, what's the place called? Cork, County of Cork. So that would be interesting to me. My mother's half Spaniard, so maybe Spain. But yeah, England's not on the list, so no offense. I do feel a lot better, and the change of environment and friend helps a lot. There is a more update, but I will let you know later on in the email. Absolutely, Rob. Keep me posted. I'm with you, bud. I'm with you. Yeah, and Ong, I'd welcome you if you want to do a coaching session or send in your story. Someone recently just asked me, can I send in my story but not have it in a YouTube video? And I was like, well, let's just do a coaching session. I used to do private video responses, and they're good. They're a little bit time consuming for me because then I have to upload them. And to me personally, if you have enough money to do the live coaching session, it's just better. It's just better. The advice helps for certain people. It depends on the type of person you are. But if you have a bad breakup or you're having trouble, a live coaching session is much better. It's much better. It just is. I've been doing this now for 4 years, and if you don't find it helpful or useful, I'll give you your money back. I haven't had a bad situation where someone's like, that wasn't. It's much better for you. Are you single? I don't talk about my relationship status because then it goes down a whole nother rabbit hole. I try to stay neutral on this channel. But if you do a live coaching session, I'll talk about it a little bit more usually. Depends on if it relates to your situation. But generally, I don't like to go there because I've seen other people give advice, and I'll tell you why. I've seen other people give advice about breakups and relationships, and then they'll reference like my wife and I, my girlfriend and I always think to myself, if I was in a breakup, I don't want to hear about your current greatness in your relationship. Because first of all, is if someone's in a current relationship and they're giving relationship advice, are they going to be able to share the bad things? Right? It's like people ask me, do you ever have trouble? Or yeah, I'm human. Absolutely. I'm not Superman of relationships. Someone was just asking me yesterday, so do you think that, gotta put the battery in. Do you think there's going to be more breakups and like shorter relationships? Absolutely. The internet's affecting that. It's going to be harder to stay together long term. But don't fight that. Don't let that defeat you. It's not like there's no hope. You just got to realize with dating apps, social media, people don't stick with things as long. But on the flip side, that doesn't give you an excuse to not be at your best. If you're at your best, you go to the gym, you're in a pretty good place in life, someone's going to find you. It's like someone I was talking to recently, they were going on a rant about a lot of different things. And a good question to ask yourself is this: do I believe in luck, or do I believe I make my own luck? Because you don't get lucky when you meet someone. Oh, I just got lucky. I met him in the park. You were giving off some good vibes, some good frequency. It's not by accident that you don't meet good. Let me put it this way. Whenever I've been on the cusp of having someone become my girlfriend, right? There was 3 or 4 options before that happened because I'm in a really good place. I'm in a really good place. When you're in a really good place, people find you. When you're giving off good vibes in a good environment, women will find you. Men will find you. And so if you aren't, and you're wondering like, oh, everything's bad, and you think that's a good question. Do you think it's just luck? Right? Well, half the battle, thanks, you love Mex. We've had some good sessions. I appreciate it. Your progress is my progress, hon. I mean that. You know, one of the great things about doing this is when I help you, I help myself. We're all connected. When you do something good for someone and they feel good, it makes me feel good too. This is what's great about this work I do. I really enjoy it. I agree. Social media ruined my relationship trust issues. Well, there you go. So here's the thing about that, Ong. Don't be a victim of it. Realize it's a problem. And then when you go into a next relationship, get out in front of that and have some boundaries on social media. You know what I mean? Put it out there because you know that's going to be an issue in the future. Are you 38 years old, Ong? Or Ang? Is that your name? My ex reached out on Xmas and New Year's Eve to wish me a happy holidays, but didn't say anything else when I replied, you two. We're no contact for 3 months, and I know he's in another relationship. What is the intention? Good question. People, doing this for 4 years, one of the biggest hangups people have. Rob, take it easy, bro. Be in contact. I'm 41 now. Angela. Okay. People will send me a message. Should I send a happy birthday? Should I send a Christmas? Merry Christmas? Look, you can't read minds. Some people just do it because Christmas and New Year's means a lot to them. If he's with someone else, I'm going to say that it's not to get back with you, but I don't know his personality. That's why when we do a breakdown and you tell me your full story, I can give you better feedback, okay? Because then you can tell me a little bit about him. Because like I tell people, no breakup is the same because your interpretation. But I do know a lot. I do see a lot of patterns. And people will literally say, how did you know that? Because I'll know the next step. I've been doing it for 4 years, okay? I don't have 100,000 subscribers, but I've probably helped over, 1,000 stories or something. A lot. Okay, so you start to notice things. So what I would say to you is, if he's already with someone else, if you were together and he just cares about you, he could have just be sending that just because he sends that to everyone he cares about as a nice gesture. I'd have to know a little bit more to the story, but you're not going to know his direct intention. The fact he's with someone else, c'est la vie. You got to cut that anchor. I'm 41. I'll be 41 soon, Ong. We can have a party together. Or Angela, excuse me, Ong. Narcissistic tendencies, toxic relationship. That's one of those things, if you ask me, FP, Long Beach's finest, if you get out of a toxic relationship and someone has narcissistic tendencies, just be thankful, be much more aware of those kind of people in the future. The idea that they have narcissistic tendencies, we human beings, anything that's selfish or selfish-minded, it could be a narcissistic tendency, right? So don't get too caught up on that label. If we did a live coaching session, I just want to unpack what happened in your story, what happened individually, because sometimes labels like that, they just add more weight to the situation, if that makes sense. So, like a true narcissist, you're not going to know till they're gone, and then you gotta realize, okay, I learned some things from this. I'm not going to be with one of those idiots again. Because once a narcissist is done with you, it's not like they just had tendencies. Still single at 41. It's so depressing. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. It was like a client I was doing a live coaching with recently was like, I got to tell you the truth, man. I got to be honest with you. He's kind of sobbing. He's going through it. I said, go ahead, man. Everyone always says they got to tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. I don't like being alone. I started to laugh. I said, well, there's a lot of people like that, right? We're human beings. We're social creatures, man. It's absolutely true. And there's something to the fact that you should be able to be alone and be happy with yourself. But there's a limit to that. And there's a client of mine right now that's having a lot of trouble with a lot of their friends are married and have partners, and it just hurts them, that they're the only one. But does single at 41 have to be depressing? Why? The question would be, why is it depressing? What's your reason for that? There's a lot of miserable people that are married at 41 that feel stuck. All right, I only got a few more minutes left. Any closing questions? It's good to get back on the live stream today. Good to see you, Rob. Good to see you, Angela, who's 41. Battling on in the great UK, FP. I'm glad you came on deck. Eduardo, always a pleasure. You still in Vegas, man? Aussie, good to see you, bud. Mr. Jesse Chapman came in for a quick cameo, and Miss Parisa. Haven't heard from Wendy Dawn in a long time. Hope you're doing well. So anyways, just to wrap this up, what happens when my relationship dies? Just a fun thing to do. It would be nice probably if I developed a survey for this, huh? Make it a little neater, package it a little different. But just think about it. Go back to your old relationships. Write out the good parts, the bad parts, where you stand with it now. See, and then, what was intimacy on a 1 to 10? What was attraction on 1 to 10? What was connection on 1 to 10? What was trust? And see if some things are coming up again and again. I really enjoyed the chat. I hope you keep well and the channel grows bigger. Thank you, Angela. Stay young. 41 is not old. It's just the beginning. Would you give up 41 and go back to 21 if you had to give up all your wisdom, Angela? That's the question I always ask. Good day, Coach. I don't see that much discussion about what to do when you are the dumper and then regret the decision. Good question, Sebastian. Well, in that particular situation, you're probably going to have to move first. You're going to have to move first. You dump them. A lot of people come to me that were dumped, and they're not going to reach out to you because you've already denied them. So this is what I'm going to say. You got to reach out to them. Okay? Why do you regret it? Are you regretting it because you're lonely? Because it's Friday night and you haven't had intimacy in 2 months? Be honest with yourself. Write out, why did I break up with them? Why do I want them back? Am I being reasonable? And what if I did and she rejected me? Well, that's a possibility. Start with baby steps and just ask, hey, look, did you want to get some coffee or did you want to go out? Don't say, do you want to get back together? Don't make it heavy. Just meet up. Have a conversation. Don't make it heavy. And then, Sebastian, ask yourself, whatever the reason for you dumping her was, is that problem or is that issue gone or is it still there and you're just lonely? What does it mean when you're pretty much over someone, but one day it just whams you over the head like a relapse? Well, think about it, Chris. If you ever had a family member that passed away, there's things that can trigger you, like someone says their name. My sister passed away a few years ago. It's tough, right? And something will just come up and it'll just drop me, and I don't even know where it comes from. And losing a serious long-term partner is very similar to that. So it's probably something that triggers you that's very subtle or subliminal, and it relapses the mind to that situation. That's why environments count so much. If you went to this restaurant that you always went to, that could relapse you. If your mom, asks you, oh, how's so-and-so? So that's just due to probably a trigger. And the mind just floats sometimes. So I wouldn't say that that's a total bad thing. It's a human thing. If a 2-month period of dating a girl is really good with a girl, is she likely to come back? High levels of attraction and mutual breakup due to her living in a different country for a while. Well, if she's still in the other country, then the problem's not solved, right? The problem was living in a different country. So you're not going to get back together. And I would say things could work if you live in the same county. Michael Trujillo drops the mic on divorce. Anything else, Michael? And what if I did and she rejected me? Well, that's always a possibility. But you're the one that dumped her, and you're the guy, so you're going to have to reach out to her. Don't look for pity. Don't look for guilt. Don't say sorry 15 times. Start a quick conversation and ask her to go get lunch. Be in each other's presence, and when you're in each other's presence, you'll know the energy's right or wrong. Does that make sense? I don't know. I feel like the term narcissist is always being thrown around. You love Mex? I absolutely agree. Sometimes like I said, I tell people sometimes it's like people are whistleblowing. There's a narcissist. There's a narcissist. Look, there's a narcissist. No one's going to arrest them. It's your opinion. It's not a fact. And if you really feel that way, just stay the hell away from them. Keep moving. Right? But that's a clinical term. That's a textbook term for people that are clinicians, right? It's a term used for that. And now from the internet, everyone and their brother's using it, and it is overused. Yeah, already messed that up. Begged and pleaded. She said she is hurt and does not want to do anything with me. We'll give her the time and space. If you want to write out your story, Sebastian, send it in to writemac.com, and I'll give you my full take. Wow, 5 pounds, right on. Thanks, Angela. I appreciate it, hon. That's very kind of you. All right, I'll be back on deck. It was good to get back into things with you. It's been a while. I've been really busy. If you want to do a live coaching session, go to writemac.com, and we'll fully unpack your situation. If you don't like it, if it's not good for you, I'll give you a full refund, and I stand on that. Should I just move on or go no contact like a normal scenario? I'd need to know your full story, Sebastian, to give you some tailored advice, but I would say go no contact, but you're the one that broke up with her, so you have the right to call her again. I need to know more about the story to give you good advice, right? So I hope that helps you. Curtains.